friends, welcome back. This week we're going to talk about sugar, and it's just the start of a conversation about sugar that's going to be ongoing for a while. So we're going to, each week we're going to talk about different aspects of sugar, the sugar industry, how sugar affects the body, different kinds of sweeteners and how they impact the body, and what you might want to choose when it comes to sugar and sweeteners, things like that. So anyways, big topics, and so it'll last a number of weeks. So the first one today is sugar and tobacco, brothers in harms. That's my title. Sugar and tobacco, brothers in harms, part 1. Because I wrote this thing and it was just way too long. I cut it in half. We'll do the next part next week. So here we go. Let's say you want to get some strawberry jam to put on your morning crumpet. After all, who doesn't like a good crumpet in the morning? You might go to the store, head to the jelly aisle, take a quick look at the labels, and choose Smucker's strawberry jam because the first ingredient is, hallelujah, is strawberries. However, if you take a second look, you will notice that the next 3 ingredients are high fructose corn syrup, and sugar. Do I have that right? Yes. So now corn syrup, high fructose corn syrup, is a balance of fructose and glucose. Okay, let me just start with sugar. Sugar is 50% fructose, 50% glucose. It's called sucrose, but it's basically 50% glucose, 50% fructose. That is table sugar, 50-50. Now, corn syrup is just glucose, and it doesn't have quite the same flavor. It's not quite as sweet as table sugar with all the fructose. So what they did, they created high fructose corn syrup to bump up the fructose level, bump up the sweetness level. And so high fructose corn syrup is kind of like a little bit more fructose than glucose. If Smucker's only used high fructose corn syrup, which is what they would probably like to do because it's cheaper than sugar and tastes about the same. Notice that it's first amongst the 3 sugars they use, so there's a little bit more of it. If they only used the high fructose corn syrup, they would have to list it as the first ingredient because they weigh, it's by weight. So it would weigh more than the strawberries that they use, so therefore it would have to list it as the first ingredient. But do they want to list high fructose corn syrup as their first ingredient? Of course not. So they want to list strawberries. So what they do is they create 3 different sugars. Each one of them weighs, I guess, a third or whatever it is, less. And then by weight, that brings the strawberries to the top. The sugar's underneath it, and therefore it seems like a healthier product. But the fact of the matter is, for your body, it's just sugar. It's 100% sugar. Now, I guess that wouldn't be surprising to anybody that has ever had strawberry jam. But it can be easy to manipulate your mind into thinking that you're kind of eating something healthy when the fact is not true. So in the book Food Fix by Dr. Mark Hyman, it's a book that I recommend and I sample from liberally in my prattles. He says, when Coca-Cola and Skittles were created, it may be true that the manufacturers didn't know just how much obesity and disease their products would cause. But this is no longer the case. Big food companies are not innocent actors caught in the wake of their unintended consequences. They are active participants in the disability, disease, and death of billions of people. Rather than changing or reinventing their products to be less harmful, Big Food has launched an intentional, thoughtful, and meticulously designed series of efforts to silence critics, manipulate science, distort the truth, aggressively control and influence media, politicians, public health, and consumer advocacy groups and consumers. Let's say you have created an entire industry, millions of livelihoods, huge corporations with stockholder expectations around a product that science is more and more saying is really damaging or even dangerous to your health, which is a bummer if you're one of those industries. So what do? Well, there's a playbook for this sort of thing that was created by the tobacco industry in the 1950s. As soon as studies started showing strong correlations between tobacco use and lung cancer, the tobacco industry began a disinformation and denial campaign that promoted bad science in order to confuse and sow doubt in the minds of consumers. These efforts, which paid off for decades, became a model not just for the sugar industry, as I outlined below, but the playbook is currently being used in service of climate change denial, COVID denial, name it. And of course, social media just amplifies all of these kind of messages that sows doubt on the science. History has a way of reminding us that something that seems obvious in hindsight wasn't so obvious at the time. So there was a day not too long ago when most people had no idea that tobacco is harmful due to the corrosive effects of industry manipulation of data and their undue influence in the creation of national policy. But of course, we only see that in hindsight, all the manipulation that was done. At the time, you just see, oh, there's scientific studies that show this or that. What will history see when we look back at what we allowed the sugar industry to get away with? I have a feeling it won't be so favorable. So here are some comparisons between tobacco and sugar industry playbooks, and I'm going to do some of them this week and some next week. Okay, so number one, they both created huge markets. Tobacco, by aggressive marketing of a highly addictive product, sales of tobacco rose from a per capita, this is really interesting, use of 54 cigarettes per year in 1900 to 4,345 per year in 1963. So each person, that's about half a pack of cigarettes per person per day of all the people in the United States. So obviously there were some people not smoking. So, you know, if half the people weren't smoking, then you're talking a pack a day for half the country, you know? So sugar, by aggressive marketing of this highly addictive product and cheaper ways of creating it, sales skyrocketed. This is really fascinating too. In 1822, the per capita yearly consumption of sugar in the United States was about 6 pounds per year. Today, we ingest an average of 150 pounds of sugar per year. That's per capita per person. That's 3 pounds a week. So in 2 weeks, the average person in the United States will consume as much sugar as the average person consumed in an entire year. Disease growth. Okay, tobacco. Huge increases in lung cancer paralleled the huge increase in cigarette consumption. Sugar. Huge increases in chronic disabling diseases such as diabetes, heart disease, cancer, obesity parallels huge increases in sugar consumption. Next, evidence linking consumption of the product to disease. In tobacco, studies in the 1950s by both outside research and tobacco company-sponsored research, which was buried, made strong links between lung cancer and smoking, or showed strong links between lung cancer and smoking. Sugar. Studies in the 70s began to emerge showing strong links between sugar consumption and heart disease. The research is now overwhelming that sugar consumption is a major player in heart disease, but also diabetes, obesity, fatty liver disease, cancer, etc., much more. There are many parallels between sugar and tobacco that I will lay out next week, including marketing to kids, marketing overseas, manipulating scientific data to support the false premise that it is fat, not sugar, that is causing the deadly rise in chronic disease, and that individuals are responsible for their own problems. In other words, what the sugar industry has done very effectively, actually, is say that we don't have a problem with sugar, we have a problem being lazy. And so it basically points to lack of exercise as being the main culprit for the increase in chronic disease. But again, this is a red herring, and it has been shown time and time again to be completely untrue. That the main causative factor of these diseases is not lack of exercise. Because if you think about it, a person, if you drink one Coke, you would have to walk 3 miles in order to work off the calories from just that one beverage. That's all I got today for my Prattle. And then for the little victory, I'm making like a little sorbet ice cream kind of dessert. So hopefully you'll enjoy that and have a great week. Talk to you next week. Bye.